all strike me as people who have an ability to act in spite of fears at times. Where do you think that comes from? And we've had discussions about whether bravery affects people as horsemen and whether that matters. Discuss.
I'll start that one off because these two are just crazy and will do anything. No, I mean, I think one of my biggest beliefs is that you have to play to people's strengths. And I've definitely come to terms with that a lot as I've got a little bit older and a little bit wiser. And, you know, so an example of that is I have, you know, we've got a lot of horses at home from sort of 3-year-old, well, 4-year-olds that we're just backing through to our top competition horses. And I have a stable rider called Anna who helps me. And she always gets on the young horses first because I don't like doing that. One, because I really don't bounce like I used to, and I never used to bounce that well in the first place. But I know that I am not good at getting on those young horses at the very start and giving them the confidence that they need. And that is fine. I let somebody else, I help and I guide somebody else because I have the knowledge, but I don't have the mental capacity, if you like, different thing. And, you know, she's really good at getting on them. And if they're a little bit losing confidence, she'll ride them forward. I'd probably stop them up. Not good. And the same thing when they go to their first show. When they go to their first show, I stand at the edge of the arena and I'm like, good girl, Bernsey, kick on. And then off she goes and it's great. And those horses have a positive experience. Whereas I know that, again, if I got on, I'd be there with one hand in my holy crap strap and the other one going, good pony, good pony. And, you know, I think it's really okay to say, like, I'm super confident doing some things and I love doing some things. And there are other things that I'm not so good at. So I'm going to let somebody that's better at that side of it do it. And I think, you know, if actually everybody in the world you learned to play to their strengths, we'd live in a much better place. But I think, you know, I think I am... by nature, a very competitive person. If I think I'm going to be really bad at something, I just don't do it. And if it's something that I'm going to be bad at, but I can cheat at, then I'll do it and cheat at it. But you know, if I'm going to be, if it's something that I really can be competitive at, then I give it everything to be, you know, and if a hurdle comes up, I find a way to get over that hurdle, but with the help of other people. That's the key.
So, I think knowledge is power, and the more techniques you can learn, the more steps you can have in place, the less brave you need to be. Because I think a lot of the time for me, when I feel nervous, it's because I don't know what to do next. You know, if I'm going to be on a young horse or working a new fresh horse that's a bit spicy on the ground or whatever, meeting a client's horse. Because I think that's something as well. You guys might not think it, but if I'm teaching a clinic and you walk in with some 18-2 thing flying like a kite on the end of a lunge line, and you've brought it because it terrifies you, and my job is to make it less terrifying, and you know the blooming thing, and I don't, and you're like, here you go, Ben, da-da-da, and we have to put on this like, oh crap, like, why didn't I do a bow clinic for Shetlands? But it's, so how do we get past that? And it's the thing that can make us seem braver in those situations is because we've put ourselves with horses again and again and again, and we have if this happens, do that. If that happens, try this. Do you know, you've all seen those funny little diagrams where it would say, do you know, like, do you like salty food? Yes, no, and then you go down and it's the next thing and then it's the next thing. And to me, a lot of the time, that's the horse training. And the more you can arm yourself with the knowledge of what to do next, the nervousness will disappear. The other thing that I have is you can't be bored and scared at the same time. Right? Think about that. So for me, how did this work in my life? Well, I do an act which is called Roman riding, which is where you stand on horses. And when I first started standing on the team of horses, so I had 4 horses with not a stitch on them, and I'm standing on top of them, Roman riding them round, and it used to blummin' terrify me. Now it just mildly scares me. And the way that I got past that is I made myself trot round on these horses, standing on them with no bridles, every day for half an hour. So I'd put a timer on my phone or my watch, and I had to be stood on them while they were trotting for half an hour. If I pulled them up, the clock stopped. If I fell off or got down, the clock stopped. And I did this for maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And the day I knew that I was no longer scared, I'm stood on the boys, Roman riding around. And then I found myself just checking a message. And then I was like, oh, I'm clearly not terrified anymore. And you know, you could apply that to yourself. Like an easy example of that is, say you would love to jump, but the idea terrifies you. Put a pole on the floor and walk over it until, if someone said to you, will you walk that horse over that pole? You say, I'd rather slam my face into a breeze block wall. Then when you get that, trot over the pole. Then canter over the pole. Now make it a tiny, tiny cross pole. Before you know it, you've conquered the fear because you've drip-fed yourself the exposure to what terrifies you in a small amount or a small way. The final thing I'd say on this idea of how can you make someone braver is all of us here have a passion for horses, and we'd all make a plan on how we'd introduce our horse to a trailer or clippers or something that would scare them. So break down your own psychology like that. Drip feed yourself the same way you would your horse with a new environment or new experience.
I actually think there's 2 types of fear. The fear that you should be afraid of and the fear that you shouldn't be afraid of. And the fear that you should be afraid of is the real fear. That's the one where you could really get hurt. Most of the time, the fear we have is the fear you shouldn't be afraid of. For instance, does everybody here really like horses and like hearing about horses? Yeah? Okay, would anybody like to come up on stage in front of all these people and tell them about your horse? Okay, you're all probably like, ooh, don't pick me, don't pick me. But really, that's the fear you shouldn't be afraid of. You're in the best place possible to talk about horses. You have a receptive audience. This would be a very safe place. But your mind tells you it's not. But what I see a lot with what I do with horses is people who are not afraid of the horse they should be afraid of. You know what I mean? I had a lady at a horse expo in Australia many years ago, probably 10 years ago, say, we've watched videos of you restarting, like rearing and bucking and bolting, warm bloods, a lot of times they were. And like, how are you brave when you get on them for the first time, after you've been through all the preparation stuff and this horse was a bucker or a rearer or a bolter or whatever? And I said, I'm not brave. I'm not brave at all. I can't think of the word that I used at the time, but Ben just, I am disciplined, but that wasn't it. Sorry, I've lost the word. Oh. No, keep throwing out words that sound like that. This is the place where I should get really afraid. I'm on stage and I'm stuck for words. My jet lag's kicking in. But basically I said, I'm not brave. What you see as brave is having complete knowledge that this is actually safe. And, it's what Ben talked about, having your preparation. So I think there is, like I said, the things you should be afraid of, the things you shouldn't be afraid of. Most of the time people I see are afraid of the things they shouldn't be afraid of and not afraid of the things that, like, I wouldn't be getting on that horse. That's probably the biggest part of that. And the other thing is, like Ben said, break it down. Like, where is the edge of your comfort zone? Doesn't matter where it is. Everybody's got a different edge to their comfort zone, but can you put your toe over the edge of that comfort zone and back in, and then leave it there for a second and get to where I can put my foot over the line and it doesn't bother me. So a number of years ago, I was in Australia doing a clinic, and there was a lady there, and she is from Sweden, but she lives in Australia now because she met her husband at the World Skydiving Championships when she was on the Swedish skydiving team and he was on the Australian skydiving team. And they do the jumps where they jump out in formation. And you've got so many seconds to do so many formations. And we were talking about skydiving, and she's had over 7,000 skydives, and she said, would you jump out of a plane? I'm like, well, I would with you, you know. And so she goes, oh no, next year when you come back to do this clinic, we're going to go skydive. So I had actually 364 days to crap my pants. But I started preparing for it. I would go on my back step, and I would stand on the edge of that step and pretend that we're at 10,000 feet and that's the edge of a plane. And if you can visualize it well enough, your body goes, no, I am not stepping off this step. And I practiced that enough to where 364 days later, we do the clinic, and then I'm going to go jump out of a plane today. And so we go, the office for the skydiving is in town, so we go to the office and they go, well, we're not sure we can do it yet because there's some cloud cover. You can't jump into clouds, so we're going to wait for the clouds to clear. So go for a walk. So we go for a walk for an hour around town. We come back. We walk in and they say, no, we can't do it today. There's too much cloud. And I'm like, I just melted. And we walked out the door and she said to me, well, there's another place up the coast here a couple of hours we could go to. You want me to call them? And I go, no. She said, why not? And I said, because I'm not ready. And she said, but you were just ready half an hour ago. I said, I spent a year getting ready and then I let go of being ready. Okay, right now I'm not ready. But later that year, I judged a horse thing in Las Vegas, and they had us stay in the stratosphere. So the stratosphere in Las Vegas is that really big, tall, skinny thing, looks like a spaceship on top. You can actually jump off the side of the stratosphere, and you're attached in something that's like a parachute harness, and it's not a bungee. Your cable's attached to a big fan, and as you jump and gain speed, that fan goes faster and it slows you down. And you're out there, it's night time, you're over the Las Vegas Strip, scariest thing I've ever done. But once I jumped off that, who's ever jumped out of a plane? Anybody here jumped out of a plane? Couple? You know, when you jump out of a plane, it's scary until you jump out. And as you jump out, you're like, oh my God, this is the coolest feeling ever. What was I ever afraid of? But after I jumped off the stratosphere, the next year, my son and I decided we're going to go skydive for the first time. I got up in the morning, had breakfast, we're going to skydive today. Wasn't a problem. And so it's just about breaking it down to steps till, you know, don't put your fear in the petrified state. Put it in a little uncomfortable state and work with that. I mean, that's how you work with horses. That's how psychiatrists work with people to get them over exposure therapy, they call it. But yeah, that'll be my thoughts on fear.
I mean, I can see exactly how stepping off your back step is like stepping out of a plane. That's crazy. I'm impressed that you managed to convince yourself that back step was 10,000 feet.
Let me ask you this: Do you visualise before you compete? Like
I do, yeah.
Really? But you're not at the Olympics. You're at home. How can that be the same?
It's not 10,000 feet though. 10,000 feet. I'm just visualising how my test feels. I'm not visualising 10,000 feet of falling.
Well, I wasn't visualising. Yeah. The thing is, it's just a step. You know, there's a really great story from the martial arts world where these guys came to this martial arts clinic for the thing for the weekend. They get there Friday afternoon, and it's mixed martial arts in the octagon thing. And they go in the octagon. There's 10 of them. They go in the octagon, and on the floor of the octagon is are you guys metric or imperial here in this country? Bit of both. There's a 6-inch wide, 6-inch square wooden beam across the floor of the thing, and it's 14 foot long or something. And he goes, okay, everybody get over here in a line, and we want you to walk across the beam. So everybody walks across the beam, and they think this is a warm-up exercise. Then he goes, now turn around and walk across it again. So they walk across it again, and after 10 minutes, they're thinking, this is a lot of warm-up exercise. They walk across this beam for an hour. And then he goes, okay, thanks, guys. Have a good rest. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And they're all like, this sucks. Like, we're supposed to be punching and kicking and fighting. The next day they come back and they all go on the octagon, and that same 6-inch square wooden beam, 14 foot long, is there, but is now on scaffolding 12 feet off the floor of the octagon. And he says, your job is to climb up there and walk across that beam. No one can walk across the beam. And he said, you could all walk across the beam yesterday because you're focused on the beam. Today you are focused on the drop beyond the beam. and the beam is the same. So it's, that's the visualization thing. So visualization is a really big part of getting over the fear of things. And he said, this is a mental sport. It might look like a physical sport, but if someone has you on your back, they're kneeling on your arms and they're punching you in the face, you cannot be thinking about being punched in the face. You've got to go, when his right arm comes back, I've got a chance to twist my hips, take my left leg, hook his elbow. You've got to be able to mentally focus on that thing. And that, if you look at mixed martial arts and you think they're tough guys, they're mentally tough is what they are. And I think that mental toughness is the thing.
In every sport, I believe.
So if you want to be as good with horses as Warwick, you need to skydive and cage fight.
Or just step off your back step for 364 days and pretend you went skydiving.
And then I bungee jumped after that too. And the last time I bungee jumped, so I've done it a few times, was in New Zealand. And it wasn't that hard to do. So I don't need to bungee jump again because I'm not paying that much money just to, I didn't enjoy the feeling of bungee jumping. Like, that was a great feeling. Pushing yourself through something that you don't think you can do is or can be life-changing. I've been into ice baths for a number of years now. My wife's got into it in the last couple of years, but the ice bath is the same thing. Ice baths are amazing because your body pushes back getting an ice bath as much as it does jumping out of a plane. But jumping out of a plane, there is a risk. Small, but there is a risk the parachute might not open or something might happen. Ice bath, there is no way you're going to hurt. You get hurt, but your brain pushes back. So it's an exercise in override. Like you get that, you're going to get in. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, you're not. You are. Yes, you are. No, you're not. And I did it for 2 years every day, and then stopped doing it because it's like, oh, time for an ice bath. Walk down the hall. Going to go get in the ice bath. So I kind of stopped doing it. But I feel like that has carried over into a lot of other things. And my wife got into the ice bath for one reason, and it wasn't the reason she ended up getting the most benefit out of it. But she's suffered from anxiety a lot. And she has basically, she used to have panic attacks, basically has solved all of that stuff by doing ice baths. And so, yeah, I think whatever it is, not everybody's got the same fear, but finding your fear and taking small steps, like Ben said, to conquer that fear. It's not about the thing itself. It's basically about conquering yourself, really.